Hello, everyone. Allow me to thank you for joining us for this session, Trust Talk number 10, discussing about the changes brought about by the new ISO 27001 version 2022. Today, we are privileged to have a very experienced panelist who will be taking us through the opportunity. Sorry. Will be taking us through the discussion around the ISO 27001. So allow me to just take you through what we'll be covering today. So the first section will be just an introduction. Then the part 2 will be doing the discussion, that is the context of evolution of the ISO 27001. Then the main changes. And finally, on the transition, that is the timeline and how to transit. Then at the end, we'll have a question and answer session from the audience. So allow me to introduce our panelists. And before that, just briefly, so Certi-Trust is an accredited certification body with operations across the globe. Our main focus or our main certification programs is around management system certification, that is a certification of organization, products and processes, technology-based test and inspection, and people certification. What drives us, our key success factor is being able to build trust with our stakeholders. And while we are delivering our services, we are able to establish integrity, maintain confidentiality and discretion. These are our founding blocks that gives us an edge and differentiation in the market. So first, our panelist is Uwarugira Liliane, who is based in Rwanda. She is an information security and risk and compliance expert. More than 10 years experience in information security advisory and implementation. Work experience is around the banking and telecommunication sectors. And currently she is the cybersecurity expert with Cybertech PTE. Some of her qualifications, she holds a master's degree in computer science, a bachelor's in engineering and information technology, several certifications, among them CISSP, CCNA security, and of course, ISO 27001 lead implementer. Our second panelist is Angela Tugume. Angela, she's based in Kampala, Uganda. More than 15 years experience, also around information security, advisory and support. Her experience is in banking, telecommunication sector, public and NGOs. She's currently the ISEC 2 Uganda chapter president, and also the lead consultant with Certi-Trust Limited, Uganda. Some of our qualifications is an MBA in information systems, a bachelor's in computer science, several certification in ISACA, and of course, ISO 27001 lead author. Finally, we have Dr. David Njoga. He's based in Nairobi, Kenya, cybersecurity governance, risk and compliance expert. 15 years of experience in information security advisory and implementations. Vast experience in defense, aviation, banking, telecommunication and public sector. Currently, he is the managing partner at RiskPro and also the head of cybersecurity policy and stand at the Kenyan National Computer and Cyber Crimes Coordination Committee, that is the NC4 Secretariat. He holds a PhD in IT security audit, a master's in information security audit, a bachelor's in information science, and also ISO 27 lead auditor. Your moderator for today, my name is Mike Kamau. I'll be taking you through and moderating this session for let's dive into the conversation. And I think our first conversation will be around the context of evolution of ISO 27001. The panelist who will be taking us through here is Dr. David. So Dr. David, welcome. You can guide us through.
Thank you very much, Mike, for that introduction. And It's also an honor. Let me also appreciate the audience who have joined us for this discussion or around this important standard of ISO/IEC 27001 of 2022. I think globally, organizations have really grown, from the traditional age of, the manual information processing to the great automation. Again, people are appreciating the value of information insofar as adding value to the core activities of businesses. We talk about both commercial and non-commercial activities undertaken by various organizations. I know our audience is varied in terms of the activities that they do in their organizations. But again, all of them, we appreciate the fact that they are all concerned about improving stakeholders' values. By stakeholders' values, every organization is geared towards, improving or adding value in terms of if it's commercial, improving revenue and therefore dividends for the shareholders. If it's public sector, we are looking at efficient and effective delivery of services to the citizens, and so on and so forth. Now, looking at the various businesses in various verticals, say financial sector, there's really stiff competition, and every organization is having a rush for global competitiveness. And global competitiveness is achieved through, the adoption of best practices, adoption of standards for quality management, and having an improved business assurance environment so that the business or the organization is focused more on lean ways of achieving its objectives, less disruptions to its operations. At the same time, of course, from Stone Age and all that, we have moved drastically to the technology or the computer age. Now we are in the smart age where we are depending on quality information to support very drastic and very sensitive business objectives. Now, because of that, again, we have seen, a lot of standards based both local, in Kenya, we also have our local Kenyan standards in the region of East Africa, continentally, globally. If you go to Singapore, parts of Europe, you go to US, Canada, there are local standards, there are local or regional frameworks and all that. So all those are, we are talking about a great proliferation of these standards, frameworks, and global best practices. Therefore, these also bring a challenge to organizations in terms of which one is which. If from Nairobi, where I sit, I see one framework as the best, somebody in, say, Austria or Italy or Canada or Morocco looks at a different framework as the best, then again, we see quite some diversity within the ecosystems. Again, because of the demand for efficiency, we are increasingly automating businesses. We are digitizing our records as well as digitalizing processes. I think public sector organizations are running after the private sector organizations who are ahead in this race in terms of managing their records and their processes using digital technologies which are running on digital platforms. We've seen also over time that the more information that we capture and retain for our operations, the more vulnerable we become due to the breaches that go with them. And some of these information security breaches have got huge impacts that could be commercial, that is loss of revenue. Some of them could lead to a disruption of businesses. Some of them will lead to breach of customers' privacy, and so on and so forth. Again, that has also necessitated the development of very harsh regulatory environments that we need to comply with. Now, looking at that again, we wish to appreciate the development of the ISO/IEC 27001 standard that is the subject of our discussion today. Mike, if you could just move to the next slide, please. So ISO/IEC 27001, I just talked about the proliferation of various standards, various frameworks, and so on and so forth. Again, that has brought what I would call best practices chaos within organizations, where many organizations are spoiled for choice, which one to consider and which one not to consider. Now, consequently, we see ISO coming in, and this standard that we are talking about today has actually had a long evolution from 1995, when it started as BS 7799 by the British standard. That has evolved with adoption of the first ISO/IEC 17799 in 1998. It has gone further in 2005 until it was adopted as ISO/IEC 27001 in 2005, and later on it was further improved in 2013. And today we are talking about the revision of that ISO/IEC 27001 to 2022 version with its various components that we need to appreciate. Now, this evolution, of course, has taken place because of the dynamic nature of enterprises, the dynamic nature of the regulatory arrangement, as well as the other factors that we, as members of various enterprises, continue facing. Therefore, agility is important. Every organization always must change how we do our business as part of continuous improvement of services. Therefore, ISO and IEC have also been cognizant of this fact and have been continuously improving on the ISO 27001 standard. Again, I forgot to mention that ISO 27000 series of standards are quite numerous, handling different issues. And again, most of them have also been migrated or updated to the latest version of 2022. Now, we look at, why we need to have several information security controls. And I mentioned that we face different challenges as enterprises. We face various environments, and we have new requirements that our organizations need to comply with. Therefore, we look at ourselves as having to embrace several security controls, because lack of them will become very vulnerable, and our organizations will be culpable to breaches, which might lead to even prosecution in courts of law. Therefore, we see compliance to this ISO standard having several benefits, including improving trust, improving efficiency of process, and also having a sustainable framework for continual improvement.
Thank you, David. That was a good insight in terms of the evolution. Next, we'll jump into the main changes that has happened with 27002, 27001 version 2022. And the panelist to take us through is Angela Tugume. Please take charge.
Thank you very much, Mike. David, thank you so much for the brief history of the ISO 27001 standard. Now, we know that this standard, it's been almost a decade, 9 years since 2013, since the 2013 standard. And because of the great threat landscape, since that time has changed significantly, we have new technologies like cloud computing, the Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, and these have all introduced new security risks that need to be addressed. Then above all, cyber threats have become more sophisticated and frequent. Then we've seen a significant increase in the number and complexity of regulatory requirements related to information security. So the whole, purpose of making changes to this standard was really to ensure that it's meeting the changing nature of information security risks and also remaining relevant and effective in today's fast evolving information security landscape. Now, you may be asking yourself, as an organization, the changes that have happened to this standard, how do they affect me as an organization? So let's look at the overview of the changes and then their implications to you as an organization. So one, there's a greater emphasis on a risk-based approach. And now that means that as an organization, you will need to demonstrate a clear understanding of your information security risks and also have appropriate controls in place to mitigate those risks. Number two, the scope of the standard has been expanded to include areas such as business continuity, privacy, and supply chain security. So that means that as an organization, you'll need to ensure that your ISMS addresses not only the traditional information security concerns, but also these new areas as well. Integration with other standards, like you heard from David, this was migrated from BS. So this ISO 27001 2022 standard has been better aligned to relate to other standards for privacy management, that is ISO 27701, business continuity management, and supply chain security management. So as an organization, you'll need to ensure that your ISMS is integrated with other relevant management systems and that you can demonstrate compliance in multiple standards. Enhanced leadership and governance requirements, these have been enhanced. This will mean that as an organization, you will need to demonstrate that your top management is actively engaged in overseeing and supporting the ISMS. So this strong governance and oversight of the ISMS must be there. We also have improved clarity and consistency. So the changes to there've been quite a bit of changes to the structure and wording of the standard to make it easier to understand and apply, as we'll be seeing later. So for you as an organization, this means that you benefit from a clearer and more consistent standard that is easy to understand and to apply. Mike, the next slide. So basically, in conclusion, the changes that we're going to talk about in the next few slides still reflect the evolving nature of the information security risk, like I've already said, and the need for a more proactive and holistic approach to information security management. So as an organization, you'll need to adopting this standard, you'll benefit from a more effective and efficient ISMS that is better aligned to your business objectives and risk management strategy. So let's jump into the nitty-gritties. What has changed? First of all, the name itself has changed. Mike, if you could go back to the previous slide. So the name itself has changed from ISO 27001 2013, Information Technology Security Techniques, to ISO 27000 2022, Information Security, Cybersecurity, and Privacy Protection. Now, this name reflects the broad intention of detecting, preventing, and responding to cyber attacks and protecting data in general. Of course, the pages have also changed. The new standard is just 19 pages compared to 23 pages of the old standard. Mike, the next page, please. So basically, what has really changed? The structure. So we've moved to just 4 primary categories in the structure. We'll see that those in the next slides. We have new control attribute classifications, and then we also have a new hierarchy of classification that is consistent with other ISO standards. Okay, so I just want to talk about the attribute classifications. The introduction of these attributes to the new standard or to the revised standard is considered a highly important feature. Why? Because the 5 attributes make this standard more convenient to use by organizations. They are also linked to specific controls to assist enterprises in better understanding, classifying, and implementing controls as required by their respective industries. So we'll see that in the later slides. We have updated controls reduced from 114 to 93, and then we have a brand new 11 controls. Now, these controls have been added in accordance with the current cybersecurity and information security settings or landscape. And then most of the controls have been consolidated and enhanced to focus on the digital. And of course, there's a very clear emphasis on information being protected as an asset. Mike, next slide, please. So on the next slide, it's just jumping into a little bit of detail and comparison from total number of controls being 14 to 93. So again, we have 11 new controls, 23 controls have been renamed, 57 controls merged into 24 controls, 1 control split into 2, and then 35 controls remain the same, but with changed control numbers. Domains from 14 domains to 5 categories, from 14 domains, to 4 categories. No, now we have the controls being categorized as 4. So we have people, anything that concerns individual people is under people, anything that concerns physical objects is under physical, anything that concerns technology is under technological, and everything else is categorized as organizational. So those are 8 controls for people, 14 for physical, 34 for technological, and 37 for organizational. Then the attributes that we talked about previously, the 5 attributes, we have the control type. This is is it preventive? Is it detective? Is it corrective? And if you've been in the cybersecurity space for a while, this is a very common control type. Information security properties, the famous CIA triad: confidentiality, integrity, and availability.
Sorry, Angela, we are losing you.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear Angela clearly.
Okay,
Yes,
perfect. Thank you. Oh, perfect. Yes. So then we have the cybersecurity concepts: identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. You'll notice that these have been borrowed from the NIST. We have operational capabilities, and then we have the security domains. Okay. Next slide, Michael, if you may. So the next slide really just highlights where the new controls have been added. So technological controls takes the bulk of the new 11 controls, and 1 in physical, which is physical security monitoring. You have organizational controls, you have threat intelligence and information security for use of cloud services. So again, new technologies come in there. You see the cloud services in there. Next slide, Michael. I'll just give an example of an attribute that we've been talking about. For example, you will have a control type as preventive. The information security property will be confidentiality, integrity, or availability. And what's the cybersecurity concept will be identifying, and operational capabilities, that's governance, and then security domains, that will be governance, and ecosystem or resilience. So we're talking about policies for information security. Just an example of how you'll apply the attributes in your organization. Next slide, Michael. So the next slide is going to talk about some of the major changes that we may call major, and some of the not so major changes that we call minor. So 1, we have the major changes revolve around expanded detail and guidance. The key one in here is that we've introduced a new clause, which is planning of changes, which was not in the previous version. The notable is also 9.2 clause has been split into two. So we have general audit and internal audit. Yearly, it was previously internal audit. 9.3 management review has been split into three. So we have 9.31 general, 9.32 general review inputs, 9.33 management review results. Then the rest of the minor changes. Now, it's key to note that clauses 4 to 10 haven't changed significantly in any way. The titles and the order of the clauses have remained the same. We just have a few additional content, changes in terminology, restructuring of sentences and clauses, just to make everything more clear. Clause 10.1, clause 10.2 has been renumbered in the new version, and then updated in the new version is 4.2 clause, 4.4, 5.2, 5.3. So as you can see on the screen, but I just want to highlight 9.1 on monetary measurement and analysis. So in the new version, performance evaluation requires organizations to establish a process for monitoring, measuring, analyzing, and evaluating the performance of their SMS. The new standard places more emphasis on performance metrics and requires organizations to use performance data to continually improve the effectiveness of their ISMS. So there's a lot of data here that we need to be able to use to improve performance. And you know that every day in our lives, we need data, to measure whatever it is that we'd like to measure. Okay, the next slide, we'll talk about the way forward right now. So if you are already implementing the previous version, the 2013 version, what do you need to do? So you review and update your standard statement of applicability, review your risk treatment plan and align it with the new structure and numbering of controls. The structure has changed, the numbering of controls has changed for some. So review and update that, then review and update the ISMS management review procedure, your inputs, review and update the IS objectives and the monitoring, measurement, analysis, and evaluation procedure, review and update the information communication plan, review and update other policies, standards, and procedures where necessary, and also review and update checklists and questionnaires used for audits, both internal and external. And then lastly, evaluate and possibly adopt third-party security tools, for example, governance, risk, and compliance systems or SIM systems to ensure that the records you are using to demonstrate compliance support the new requirements. Mike, over to you.
Thank you, Angela. That was brilliant. I bet we'll be having some questions, some clarification at the end of the session. So we jump into the last session or the last section where we'll be discussing the transition timeline and how to transit. Take us through this will be Lilian. Lilian, you can take up.
Yes, Mike, thank you. So we're going to be talking about transition and timeline and how to transition. So the transition, transition will be done over 3 years. It started October 2022 and it will end September 29, 2025. So this new version was released September 2022, and companies can still be assessed and certified against the old version, which is 2023 until December 2023. So it's just this year. So in March 2024, after March 2024, organizations will not be able to be assessed and also certified against the old version. So organization can only be certified, assessed and certified against the new version after March 2024. The the certificates on old version, that is 2023, shall expire on the 29th September 2025. So that means all organizations will have to be on the new version 29th September 2025. Next, please. Next slide. Okay. So when can you do the transition? You can do the transition when you are renewing your certificate, or you can do the transition when you are doing the surveillance audit, or even when you have requested for a special audit, you can do the transition immediately. Instead of doing the 2023, you do, 2013, you do the 2022. So how do you make a decision to implement the old version, which is 2013 or 2022? So right now, for the organizations who want to implement the ISO 27001, they need to be able to make a decision whether they implement the new version or the old version. So you have seen the timelines, and the question you need to ask yourself is, when is the target date when we want to be certified? And are we going to start immediately? Are we sure that by December we will have completed the certification processes? So it's that is how you will be able to decide whether you go for the new version or the old version. Next.
Okay, thank you, Lillian. So here, what we are looking at is how can Certi-Trust help you? Because I believe these are some of the questions the team or the audience will be asking. So for organization, our recommendation is you need to skill your teams, your champions, to be able to understand the new standard and be able to appreciate the changes. Then secondly, is to implement the changes and do an internal evaluation to be able to see how ready you are. Then at the end, you're able to invite Certi-Trust as your certification body to come and do a certification audit and award you the ISO 27001 version 2022. For individuals who have already certified on the previous version of 2013, so training is available for the transition and also exams. Some of the solutions we offer through our training partners there's a self-study, there's an online training, and there's also a trainer-led option in terms of training. So you can be able to skill up and be able to gain these new benefits, the expanded portfolio in terms of the content, and you can be able to match up the needs of your organization and also the stakeholders in the market. Further ahead, so we'll be taking question and answer again, as in at least what we've been doing in terms of the three topics. And so far I can see there are several questions. If I may, so those who have questions, you can actually just use the Q&A chat, and then you can be able to see the questions. So the first one we have is, do you think, please, these changes are enough to handle the information system situation in all companies? So I think you meant if the changes are able to handle the information system in all companies. So David, I can give you this one to answer. Let me see another one which I can give it to you. There's also somebody asking whether this webinar will be shared. It's already live on YouTube. We'll also share the link where you can be able to get access to it. Please, what is the relationship between 27001 and ISO 27701? That is what is the relationship between ISMS and PIMS? So Angela, you'll be able to take this one. Okay, so David, you can take the first question. Are these changes sufficient to handle information system situation in all companies?
Thank you. I think I'm seeing the participants is anonymous attendee. But just to respond to the concerns of the anonymous attendee is that we appreciate the evolution of this standard from the time it was a British standard, BS 99977, up to now. Now, what has happened significantly in the new version, that is the 2022, is that it has demystified and incorporated the three, I would say, confusing and what appear to be quite some related areas. People are struggling with differentiating in information technology security, information security, and cyber security. But look at it holistically, those concerns are around people or security of people, security of process, as well as security of technology. Now, if you also look at some of the enhancements in the new standards that it has actually embraced, it has tried to reconfigure and recalibrate the controls so that it can have a better and more holistic view of an organization. And consequently, I would say that whereas it will meet most of the requirements of protecting information systems of organizations, it would be unfair to say that it will meet all the requirements. However, the beauty of this is that this standard is actually managed by a collaboration of various professional bodies of knowledge, various standards institutions, as well as many other researchers and academia. And I know from time to time, should there be significant changes or requirements to be covered, I mean, which have not been covered by this standard, then there will be addendum or what they can call corrigenda to this standard to meet the requirements. So I think, again, we encourage practitioners that whenever they have some areas which they feel are not well or comprehensively covered by the standard, they could come forward and channel those concerns so that they can be included in the next subsequent revisions or addendum. Thank you.
Thank you, David. So I'll take on the next question. But before I take on the next question, I'd just like to give comfort to the previous question that David has just responded to. The reason we've had also a revision of the 2013 version is because of the feedback, that has been coming from users of that standard. It's been in use for such a long time, 9 years, and that feedback has helped improve and make the 2022 version better. And also a very, very key thing to note, the 5 control attributes that are in the 2022 version enable organizations to integrate with other security management systems and frameworks, So remember, we talked about the cybersecurity concepts of identify, protect, detecting, responding, and recovering. You're looking at NIST there. So having those attributes actually will enable you as an organization to integrate with other security management systems and frameworks as well. So that's the beauty of the new version. So to the question that was in the chat, let me just go to the chat and pick it up. What's the relationship between ISO 27001 and ISO 27701? So ISO 27701 is a privacy add-on to ISO 27001. So ISO 27001 will establish a framework for an organization's ISMS. Then ISO 27701 will expand that ISMS and create a privacy information management system that's in short called PIMS. So in so few words, the PIMS standard or the ISO 27701 standard will cover the methods an organization has for collecting, processing, storing, and destroying personally identifiable information, PII, by showing you how to design, set up, manage, and continually improve your PIMs. Okay, I hope that answers the question. Mike, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Angela. We have a few questions on the transition. So one, please repeat the slide on transition for both individuals and companies. Then we have, can organization operate both 2013 and 2022 versions simultaneously during transition? Shed more lights on timelines. From MTN Uganda, the training for ISO 27222 will be required. The timelines are very tight to transition. Kindly advise. Okay, so let's tackle those ones. I think Lilian will be able to tackle, and also the other panelists, they can be able to chip in. So let me just move to the slide on transition. Okay, so this is the part. So Lilian, you can be able to shed some more light. I think the question is around, are you able to do both 2013, 2022 at the same time? Then the other one is on the timelines being too short. How do they manage it? Yes. I think there was also a question on the transition for individuals and organization. Someone had indicated to repeat this. So just to go again, overview. So for organization, these are recommendations. Given it's a new standard coming in with some changes, so we recommend training of the team so that they can be able to appreciate the changes which have happened. Then implement these new changes that are required by the new standard, conduct an internal audit, then you can be able to go for the certification. I don't know any panelists who has some more insight to share around this transition.
Thank you, Mike. I'll chip in. So if you go back to the slide on what an organization needs to do, in the meantime, if they already have 2013, you will need to give yourself maybe 1 to 2 years as an organization to transition. And there's a slide on way forward. So you need to give yourself 1 to 2 years. And what I'll advise people is to maybe have 2 Excel sheets, one for 2013 and one for 2022, and you keep doing the comparison, especially on your risk treatment plan, aligning it with a new structure and numbering of controls around there. Yeah, and then updating policies, checking checklists, and making sure that you're really in compliance. So it's not such a big change, but it's moderate change that you'll need to do. So 1 to 2 years, you'll be good to go. Over to you, Michael.
Okay, then in terms of timeline, just remember, you have all the way to 2025, September, for you to do the transition. So there's still sufficient time for you to do the transition, okay? I think we have some more minutes. I think we can do another 3 questions. So the other question is, ISO 27001 certification sufficient to meet GDPR? So I think Angela will take this one. What are the main challenges, difficulties that you see organizations facing when attempting to implement the transition? Then Masharia is asking, do you offer professional membership? So that one I can take. Then where can I get national data on cybersecurity? I think Dr. David, you'll be ideal to answer this one. So Angela, any challenges you foresee?
Okay, so let me go back to the first question of if implementing ISO 27001 helps you comply with the entire GDPR. No, having the ISO 27001 certification will help you satisfy one of the requirements of the GDPR. That's the fact that the GDPR will require you to demonstrate that you have appropriate organizational and technical controls in place, to protect the personal data of the data subjects that you collect. So there are many standards that can help you demonstrate this part of the requirement, but ISO 27001 is one of them. The other question is challenges in implementing 27001 2022. I'll just flip it to this side. If as an organization you have already implemented to the previous version of 2013, then you have gone over some of the challenges. If as an organization you have not yet implemented any ISO standard, you've not yet implemented ISO 27001, then as always, the biggest challenge that you have is convincing your board or your top management that information security is a critical business issue, so that's so that then you can get the buy-in and you can implement it. Because remember, in 2022 and also in 2013, governance is very, very key. So that buy-in from your board, from your stakeholders, from your management, top management is very critical. So convincing them is where, there's going to be challenges. And the thing is that for most proposals fail because they don't focus on the benefits of implementing an ISMS. So instead of focusing on the business value of implementing an ISMS, most proposals will focus, when we do an ISMS, we'll get a firewall, we'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, we'll do 5, 6, 7, but you need to translate that into business value. What is in it for the board, for the management, because all they're looking at as business value, the returns that they will get from implementing this solution. Number 2, of course, is having a budget allowance to implement an ISMS. It doesn't come free of charge. Then having enough human resources to deliver the projects. Yeah, so those are the 3 challenges that I can think of right now. So if there's any other challenges, you can just type them in the chat, or one of the panelists can also add on. Thank you, Mike.
Okay, thank you. Dr. David, where can I get national data on cybersecurity? You can be able to help on that one.
Thank you very much. And I think, the questions are quite broad, but maybe, I don't know, the questions from, you said from John or from, in Kenya, where I am, and from where I sit, we look at there's a national coordination framework for matters cybersecurity, and that is the National Computer and Cybercrimes Coordination Committee, which also coordinates the other agencies and entities within the cybersecurity protection space. What the question is not clear on is which kind of data, because again, the various types of data that is collected, analyzed, and reported on, beginning with cyber threats, vulnerabilities, attacks, and many others, including even the cybersecurity capacity, the skills, requirements, and so on and so forth. So I think within Kenyan space, you may get this information from the National Computer and Cybercrimes Coordination Committee, where I work as the head of cybersecurity policy and standards. And again, you can also look at our portal nc4.go.ke, which also has gotten a platform for reporting cyber incidents. We also have the Communications Authority, which also has a portal for the Kenyan SAT, also generating reports on cyber security. So I'm not able to really pinpoint the exact information you can get where, but I would say those are the main entities in the Kenyan base that deal with cybersecurity reporting, and therefore you'll be able to get various types of data from the mass of data that they gather. And this can also be effective only if we also encourage you and other members of the ecosystem to be reporting cybersecurity incidents. Thank you.
Thank you, David. I think this one I'll give Lilian. Lilian, based on your experience in implementing ISMS, there's a question here. How long will it take an experienced consultant with informed champions to align an old ISMS to changes that are going for the first certification audit? So basically, how long will it take to implement an ISMS on the new version?
So I would say it depends also on the processes in the organization, but average is 6 months.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I can see there's a request to share the slide. Yes, we'll be sharing this one. I think the email addresses you provided. And then also we've provided also our contact. If you need further detailed information, we should be able to provide. The other question is, can organization be certified without any internal staff being ISO 27001 2022 certified? So the requirement of the certification audit is that you need to show that your staff have been trained. So you can have the champions or the internal staff being trained and they've not sat for the certification exam, and still you can be able to continue with the journey. Certification gives you added advantage. It gives you more leverage, but you can still be able to continue with this one. Let me see if there's another question. I think we've tackled most of the question. So I think for this time, I'll give a chance to the three presenters to give a comment just as a closing remark, then we can call it a day. I'll start with Angela.
Thank you, Mike. Just to say thank you for inviting us for this webinar and for the presentation, and to the panelists or to the attendees. If you have further questions about transitioning to the 2022 standard, you can always reach out to us. And if your organization has not yet implemented the ISO 27001 standards and is seated on the edge, I hope you really decide to, to implement that standard sooner than later, because it helps in a lot of things right now that it covers so much more, including data protection and privacy and Internet of Things and cloud computing. So I think it's a standard that will be very good for your organization. And there's a myth that this standard is only for large companies. No, you can implement this standard for any size of company, any type of company, any size. You just have to be sure to scope it right and, to align it to your processes and, make the standard work for you. So it works for all and any organization. Thank you very much. Over to you, Michael.
Thank you, Angela. Lilian?
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone who has been in this webinar. Yes, I think Angela has said it. If you need any help, you reach out to us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. David?
Thank you very much for this opportunity and for all the participants being with us to unwrap this new version of the standard. I think just like Angela mentioned and emphasized that these are good standards to embrace because it will really improve the information security posture of the organizations. From some research, when you have a secure information security environment, then it reduces almost 60% of your operational challenges. And then now you focus on your core objectives. Again, I would like to encourage you to, distance yourselves from the myths that ISMS implementation is expensive. I think there are several cost-effective approaches that you might explore to enjoy the benefits of ISO/IC 27001 at various levels. The minimum you can do if you don't have budgets for implementation is to baseline. Just look at those controls and start developing them, because a lot of them can actually be developed internally. These are standards, policies, procedures, guidelines, and the required documentation, as well as the required information security awareness programs. At the end of the day, let's all focus on improving the information security culture within our organizations, because it makes our organizations stable. It makes our countries also secure, and improves our regional information security environment that will enable a regional, a continental, and a global business environment. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. Much appreciated. So on behalf of Certi-Trust and the team behind the scene who have made this possible, I want to say thank you. Thank you to the audience. We usually have a YouTube channel, Certi-Trust, where we also do other topics, business continuity, privacy. All these will be an interest for you. So this is just one of the content we discuss. So you can follow us. You can be able to get more information. You can be able also to reach us on the contacts on the slide. And I want to wish you a good weekend which is coming up. And thank you so much for taking your time to be with us. Thank you and have a good day.